Today, we're going to be breaking down A Few Good Men, that really important courtroom scene between Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, where Tom Cruise was representing an attorney, Lieutenant Caffey,
Lawyer and an officer in the United States Navy.
and Jack Nicholson was representing Colonel Jessup. We all remember the scene in the movie where Tom Cruise says, I just want the truth, and Colonel Jessup replies with,
You can't handle the truth.
before he goes into a long dialogue on honor and loyalty and code and how he can never understand what he does, and basically while the world is protected by men who have to do harsh things, is pretty much how he summarized before he admits with expletives that he did order the code red, which ultimately ended up with Private Santiago's death. Now we had Private Downey and Lance Corporal Dawson were the two accused enlisted members in that case, and their whole defense at the trial throughout that movie that was such a compelling legal narrative was that they were just following orders.
We follow orders or people die.
And they were just following those orders from a commanding officer, in this case a colonel, and that therefore they should not be held to account and they should not be held accountable for their actions. And ultimately, the movie ends with some verdicts, and they were ultimately charged with conduct unbecoming of a Marine and were discharged. And Colonel Jessup, again played by Jack Nicholson, was found guilty of impeding an investigation and also conduct unbecoming of a Marine.
You have the right to remain silent.
It really brings to bear on some really important topics that are really important to me and relevant as a JAG attorney in my military service. So I'm a JAG attorney in the Army Reserve, and the just following orders defense has been used in recent history. And so we're going to dive into that now. The first time it was attempted to be used really in the 20th century was following World War II by Nazi war criminals, by the likes of Hermann Goring, Rudolf Hess, and Julian Streicher. These were some really prominent senior level Nazi officials that attempted to use this defense at the International Criminal Court, and it was obviously unsuccessful. Many of the men and senior officials were sentenced to death, hanging, life imprisonment for crimes against humanity, and war crimes, just to be frank. And so many of these were junior officers that were following true orders from their military government officials to commit a lot of atrocities, obviously, against humanity. That was a really critical time in the development of international martial law and also the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is what holds our soldiers in the United States military to account. And we are under a duty to only obey lawful orders and orders that don't violate the Army values, codes of conduct, international codes of conduct. We also have a constitutional right to protect and defend the United States Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that means not obeying orders that would violate the Constitution, for instance, in the United States military. Which brings me to the Vietnam War. That's where we really saw it with the United States soldiers, most glaringly in the media in the 1960s and early 70s. In 1968, there was the prominent and famous My Lai massacre, in which 500 to 700, or maybe even more, we'll never know, unarmed Vietnamese were slaughtered by U.S. soldiers. This included women, children, and the elderly. It was a very embarrassing moment in the U.S. history. Lieutenant Caffey was the lieutenant over an infantry platoon at that time. He went to a court martial. Many enlisted NCOs went to a court martial, and their defense there by some very prominent JAG attorneys at that time was, we were just following orders. And it was not successful there. Lieutenant Calley was ordered for life imprisonment. The political climate of the day, President Nixon did essentially pardon him. He got out and off after 3 years and spent some time on house arrest. But the bottom line is that was more development in the law and the just following orders. It became very clear under the United States Code of Military Justice that that is never a defense that is going to work. Obviously, when we're talking about atrocities, war crimes, crimes against humanity. And so there you go. There you have it. Some really modern examples in the Vietnam War. We broke down A Few Good Men, which highlighted hazing and unfair treatment to soldiers. And then we went over the Nuremberg trials, which was war crimes. And then, embarrassingly, but it's important we talk about these moments in U.S. history where the just following orders defense it failed. And it failed because, again, there were crimes that were done against humanity and to unarmed non-combatants. If you like this breaking down real world events in cinema, which sometimes brings really great topics, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to be doing these videos weekly, and I hope that was useful and interesting. I like to bring my military experience in when I can, and I hope everyone finds that useful, and maybe you should watch a few good men as we enter the holiday season.